We've all taken a standardized test. You sit in a silent classroom for hours, there's an immense amount of pressure put on you to succeed, it disrupts your daily schedule, and you're freaking out because you don't know if you're going to do well. But more often than not, standardized tests do more harm than good for students. There's an immense amount of pressure put on students to succeed in one day on one test without including external factors. They're frequently cause subjects that aren't reading, writing, and math to be removed from the curriculum. And they don't measure key aspects of intelligence such as critical thinking and creativity. But overall, standardized tests should not remain in schools. As stated in the article released by Columbia University entitled Pros and Cons of Standardized Testing, standardized tests put an unreasonable amount of pressure on students to succeed, which often results in an inaccurate score. Because they feel so much pressure, they have a worse score due to the fact that they're freaking out about it. A lot of students even develop test anxiety, and according to the American Test Anxiety Association, approximately 20% of students have a high test anxiety, and 18% have a moderately high test anxiety. That's a lot of students to not have accurate scores, and on average they perform 12 percentile points below the average student, which is about half a letter grade lower just because they can't focus because of the stress that's put on them. A lot of people say that standardized tests are useful to compare schools and students nationally. However, it's not fair to compare them if they're not giving an accurate score. A lot of things do impact how a student does on a test, and a lot of external factors, such as if they got in an argument with their parent that morning, if they're not feeling well, or if they just had a tragedy in their family. All of these things impact how a student does in the classroom, and they may not perform their best if something's going on outside the classroom. I know I can't focus in a lecture, let alone take a test that has so much pressure put on me if I'm not focused. Standardized tests also impact what's taught in the classroom. Teachers are forced to exclude interesting and important topics from the curriculum so they can prep for these tests. And the Center on Educational Policy reported that since 2001, almost half of all the districts in the United States have cut class time spent on history, science, and the arts by 145 minutes to focus on math and reading. Teachers also do what's called teaching for the test, which is where lessons are not centered on educational value and growth and more about what's going to be found on the standardized test. In an article written by the American Federation of Teachers, approximately 3 to 6 weeks of class time is spent on test preparation and taking tests. This is an immense amount of time that can be used to address more abstract concepts and further educational growth instead of multiple choice questions. These topics, although reading, writing, and math are important, other things are important as well. And topics that aren't reading, writing, and math are more likely to get students interested in educational exploration and get them to want to learn and go to school. Standardized tests do not measure important aspects of intelligence such as creativity and critical thinking. As stated in the article Creative and Critical Thinking, released by Penn State, critical thinking is reasonable, reflective, responsible, and skillful thinking that is focused on deciding what to believe to do. Critical thinking is such a valued skill in today's society, and it can only be taught through experiencing and analyzing things in a classroom setting to learn how to fully analyze a situation. And it's highly valued in the world of science, and science is such a huge world to try to get into, as well as art. I know as an art student that analyzing things is an immense amount of your time, thinking, well, if I paint this green, how will this affect what's painted red? Multiple choice questions don't use critical thinking. They tend to put students' minds in a box and make them think in only terms of A, B, C, or D, instead of thinking outside of the box and how will this answer reflect what I'm saying. Some things just cannot be measured on a test, but over time in the classroom. One teacher decided that she would post an open forum where she would let her students speak about standardized tests with absolutely no judgment. And one student posted, "I think standardized tests are a waste of time and money. Life is more open-ended, not multiple choice." Overall, standardized tests is a lot for students to handle, and in the end, it's just not worth the stress and educational deprivation it puts students under. As another option to standardized tests, the state could look at the growth over the course of the year, so compare grades from the beginning of the year to the end of the year in similar topics to see how the student grew. And if they want to compare them nationally, they'll just use similar topics. Most topics are covered in similar grades. And in the end, it's just clear to see that standardized tests should be removed from schools.